This lens was sent to me with no price, no specs, no lens cap, and a big dent in the side of it. Did I mention it came in a plastic bag instead of a box? Let me show you what I created with it. Understandably, I was pretty sus on this lens when I got it. Most companies want to make sure that you have a great experience from start to finish, but the interactions I had with the rep in this case made it feel like a dodgy drug deal. I was told many weeks later that it was a sample unit, not a pre-production, but a sample. It took me 4 months to even get the specs out of them. This lens is a 12mm full-frame f2.8 fisheye. It comes in Sony E-mount, Nikon Z, L-mount, Canon RF, and Fuji GFX. It has a 185-degree field of view apparently. Does that mean you can see behind you? It's made up of 11 elements in 8 groups, whatever that means. So without knowing any of this, I set up a shoot with a very talented local skateboarder to test it out. When you first pick up this lens, it's really pleasantly heavy. The whole thing is metal, including the lens hood, which is probably a good thing because it kind of looks like mine was dropped in the factory. It has really smooth, slow focus and aperture rings, which feel really nice to use. Although I do wish there was a way to lock them because I did find while shooting stills, there was times where I was accidentally changing the aperture. Overall, I really can't fault the build quality of this lens, other than to say it has no noticeable weather sealing as far as I can tell. For all that, I really wouldn't be shooting a big bulbous piece of glass like this in the rain anyway. I shot these images mid-morning on a pretty overcast but still quite bright and glary day. The first problem that I ran into was shooting my A7 III on a bright sunny day at 25 frames a second can be a little bit difficult. If you're not familiar, S-Log3 has a minimum native ISO of 800. And if you're shooting at 4K, 25 frames a second, your shutter speed needs to be at 1/50th. Problem is, the maximum aperture of this lens is f/16. At 1/50th of a second, ISO 800, you're going to need to stop down your aperture quite a bit to get the correct exposure. It wasn't a deal breaker, but I was pretty much at f/16 for most of the day, and I would have loved an extra stop or two of flexibility, considering you can't install an ND filter on this lens. You could of course get around this by shooting a different picture profile or shooting in slow motion if your camera allows it to use a slightly faster shutter speed. It's just something to keep in mind for a bright sunny day. This lens is also manual focus. Personally, I'm not so great at using manual focus, but being an ultra wide, it's pretty easy to keep things sharp. I've set up one of the custom buttons on my camera to the focus assistant, and that way, anytime I want, I can just hit that button to punch in 5 times, fine tune the focus, and then punch back out and keep filming. For stills, I found it a really fun challenge, especially considering I haven't shot anything skateboard related in like 10 years. The lens performs pretty well though, I thought. I just had to get used to holding it in a way that I wasn't going to accidentally change the aperture because, like I said, it happened quite a few times. It would be so handy if it had like a clicking mechanism built into it or if it had a lock, but for the price tag of around $250 US, I guess you really can't expect that much more. I shot these images with an off-camera flash to make them really pop. If you're interested in the exact gear that I use, I've left some links in the description down below. Back to the review, I'm actually so shocked at how close this lens focuses. No matter how close I thought I was getting and how risky it felt at the time, looking back at the images afterwards, I still wish I was closer. To be honest, I think that's where this lens really shines. It's not that interesting to just have everything in the frame all the time, but to warp and distort the dimensions a little bit, to put a subject close up in the foreground and get a little bit of separation that way, that's where the money is. It's actually pretty damn sharp close up too. For the price, it seems like a bit of a no-brainer if you're interested in getting into shooting skate, stills, or video. It's built like a truck and it feels so durable in your hands, which is going to give you the confidence to get really up close and personal. Using a more affordable lens like this is a great way to train yourself to not be so precious and to stick your camera in places that you otherwise mightn't have. A $2,000 Sony or Canon fisheye is completely worthless if you're too afraid to get the shot with it. On that note, I mentioned earlier that this lens is compatible with so many different systems, which is brilliant. I'll link as many of them as I can down below so you can find it in your local Amazon store, no matter which team you bat for. If you like the way the images look in this video, here's a little before and after. They were edited with my Big Pants Universal preset pack, which is available in the description down below. I've also popped up a video on screen now in which I run through my minimal flash setup, including all the equipment that I used for lighting in this video.